we started with legislation years ago, in 2006.
Yeah.
That's when some of our professors, started with this.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't really go anywhere.
You can only take the person's cornea when the person is dead and is not using their eyes.
Right.
So unlike kidney transplants, that's most of the time you may get a live donor. In cornea transplants, it's a dead donor.
Hi, good day and welcome to another edition of the Lowdown here on Ghanaweb TV. My name is Daniel Oduro. We continue our series of conversations as far as organ transplantation in Ghana is concerned. Only a few weeks ago, we brought you the first kidney transplant in Ghana performed by an all-Ghanaian doctors in Ghana. There's another one in August, but there's another organ that has been, if you like, ongoing in Ghana for some time now. It's the cornea transplant in Ghana. They've chopped quite a few of successes as far as that is concerned. I've got two distinguished doctors to have a conversation with today, and I'm happy that they have agreed to, if you like, let us in as far as cornea transplantation is concerned. Dr. Gladys Fordjuor and Dr. Bella Dziffa Bella Ofori-Agyei are my guests on today's edition of the Lowdown. Doctors, good day and welcome to the show. I'll let you tell me about your positions and your dealings with cornea transplantation. I'll start with Dr. Dziffa Bella.
All right, so to my left is my boss,
Okay.
like you rightly said, Dr. Gladys Fordjuor.
Right.
She's a cornea specialist and she's a consultant ophthalmic surgeon with the Oduro Teaching Hospital.
Okay.
She's currently the acting head of unit.
Okay.
And then we have the Ophthalmological Society of Ghana, which is a group of eye doctors, eye surgeons. Okay. And she is a chair of their cornea working group. So you see the eye, it's got different parts. So even in the eye society, we've got different surgeons.
Okay.
And she sits in the cornea. That is her
specialty.
That is her specialty. That is where she plays around the cornea.
Okay.
So she's a chair of that working group
Okay.
of the Ophthalmological Society of Ghana. And
She's a big woman.
she's a very big person. And she's my boss, and she's the reason why I'm doing ophthalmology. So
Why do you say that? Why do you say she's the reason you do?
because she asked me to do ophthalmology. I wasn't initially going to do ophthalmology.
What were you going to do?
I was going to do pediatrics.
And she
So
convinced you.
She convinced me to, and I haven't regretted. So
Wow.
I'm happy. I mean,
And you're working with her.
yeah, she's my boss. I work under her. And I am the president of the Ophthalmological Society of Ghana.
Right.
And so that is how we are going to talk about the cornea
Okay.
today. And like you rightly said, there are different organs in the body. You've heard about the kidney transplant,
Yeah.
and then they are doing liver transplant,
Yes.
and then the eye. The eye, the one of the transplants we do is the cornea. There's another part of the cornea called the limbus, limbal stem cell, that we do transplant. But our focus today is
It's
on
on
the
cornea.
cornea. Okay. So I have a dummy eye here. So if you just indulge me. So this is a Caucasian eye. As you can see, the
blue
iris
eye.
is blue. It's supposed to be brown. Okay. And in front of that is this clear, glassy substance called the cornea.
Okay.
So when you look through, you see the blue because the cornea is transparent.
All right.
That's the only reason why you can see the blue. So the blue is not exposed. It is covered with a transparent, glassy structure called the cornea.
Okay.
Okay. So in cornea transplant, there may be a problem with the cornea, and that glassy cornea becomes opaque, so it becomes white. So for some people, if the entire thing becomes white, you can't even see
at all.
the brown eyes at all or the blue eyes at all. Some people, it's just part of it that will become opaque
Okay.
and will affect the eye.
So there's partial and there's full.
Yes, there's partial and there's full. It can be central, it can be peripheral, but it will all affect your vision, because to see, this must be crystal clear. It must be white, it must be clear, it must be clear, transparent like water.
Right.
Or we say it must be gin clear like gin. So there you go. That is what we have. That's what the normal cornea looks like. So any problem with the cornea may result in it becoming opaque, opacified, and then the white will appear.
Okay.
And that is where you need to do cornea transplant. So basically, cornea transplant is taking cornea tissue, this clear tissue, from someone else, and then transplanting it in another person.
Okay.
But you can only take the person's cornea when the person is dead and is not using their eyes.
Right.
So unlike kidney transplants, that's most of the time you may get a live donor. In cornea transplants, it's a dead donor that would give you the cornea. So when before the person dies, they would usually sign and say they want to give a part of their organs as to be donated. So that is where cornea transplant comes in. So we need legislation to back that, because in other parts of the world, it is combined with many things. Maybe before you take your driver's license, they will ask you, when you die, do you want to donate your organs? And you say yes. So as soon as you die, doesn't matter where you die, the system is triggered and they will begin to take out the organs that you need, you have asked them to take out, and that is when the cornea can be taken out. And so when one dies, there's with a short period of time within which the cornea has to be taken out. Otherwise, it is not useful again. And that is where the legislation is very important, because then it will give us, the surgeons, the permission, so that when someone is dead or someone is brain dead, then we can go ahead and harvest an organ like the cornea. Once you get this cornea transplant, your eyes are as new as you can imagine. So some people who are completely blind get restoration of sight just by the cornea transplant.
Wow.
So this is a medical miracle.
Wow. But how long have we been doing cornea transplantation or transplant in Ghana?
Right. So in the 90s, we had a surgeon here, eye surgeon, who took a better eye of a patient and transplanted it into the other eye, and the patient could see again, because one eye was blind, one eye had a scar, corneal scar. So that's the record that we have. That's the first one that was done. Then subsequently, we've had maybe 2 or 3 visits from external partners. They come and do maybe 2 and go. But real work really started after 2017.
2017, 5 years ago.
Yes, when we had collaboration with an external partner, Himalayan Cataract Project. And through them, we've been doing, a few at a time. The thing is that when they are coming, they hand carry the cornea. And when they come, once it comes in, we call the patients and then we do them. This year alone, we've done 18.
This year alone?
This year
18.
alone.
That's an average of what? Like maybe 3 a month on average?
Yeah, but it's not consistent. We can only do it when they call that they're coming. They're coming with tissues. And then we call up our patients when they're ready. Sometimes the patients are also not ready.
With money or with what?
They just don't,
or
it's not in their plan. They need to psych themselves. Because this is a major surgery they're doing. So this year, half of the year, we've done 18. Next month, we've just had an email that somebody else is coming and hand carrying it.
So they come with multiple corneas or maybe 1 or 2?
It depends on what they get. So they also solicit from the eye banks in the US. So most of our corneas are from the US. Recently, we've had one from Nepal. But you can see the distances the tissues are,
US is far. US is more than 10 hours from here. If it is even the UK, you say 6 hours will be here.
So we believe that even the distance may have some effects on the tissues. The best is having the tissues here and then transplanting within a few hours. And that eye is as good as new. So it's been going on for some years, but majority of what you've done so far has been over the past maybe 4 or 5 years.
I would describe myself as an educated person, but I wouldn't say I know so much about what's been happening with your unit or with the cornea transplantation in Ghana, which may suggest that the average Ghanaian doesn't know what's happening. Why is there not a lot of noise about 18 transplants in 6 months? Is a big deal.
Well, the hospital itself, put it out. And we're also making efforts through we had a summit in March. And the summit was to bring all this together. The same thing you're saying, we realized that most people didn't understand. Most people didn't know about it. But then you need people to donate. You need people to give consent. So we had to engage, the general population we had to engage the politicians because they have to give the go-ahead for legislation to come in place. So in March, we held our summit, and that brought it out in the open.
Okay.
So together with the other disciplines, if we are all, together and now making, we started with legislation years ago, in 2006.
Yeah.
That's when some of our professors, started with this.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't really go anywhere. 2016, we got called. We were on the committee. We did, the work all over again, and we sent it, and we are still waiting. So this is a new start. We want to start again, bring it out in the open, talk to the public. So advocacy is high on the list.
Yeah.
We need to talk to people,
okay.
and then legislation, and then we continue with getting the surgeries also done,
okay.
because it is from the success stories that is what will also encourage
people to,
others to to help and to join.
So the kidney transplants, we've been doing some in Ghana for some time, but the last month one was a whole Ghanaian team or crew.
Yeah.
Do we have Ghanaian surgeons that can perform in the absence of these expatriates who come and help with the transplantation?
Yes. So currently we have 4 corneal surgeons.
In the whole of Ghana?
In the whole of Ghana.
And you are one of them?
Yes, and I'm one of them. two in Kumasi, 2 in Accra.
Kumasi, are you also one of them?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Her side is special in that
okay.
she's a pediatric ophthalmologist.
Okay.
And we do have children who have the corneal opacities.
Okay.
And she has to help us manage those ones. Because when we do the surgeries, she has to also be there, to see to how they fare. So we have, like I said, we have 4 surgeons, 2 in Kumasi and 2 in Accra. Kumasi, Konfanochi has been doing surgeries for quite a bit of time. In fact, they started way before we did, because they had this collaboration with this NGO way maybe 2006 or so.
Okay.
So they have had, that collaboration. We came in later.
Okay.
But the other in Accra, the other corneal surgeon is in private practice. So we also collaborate.
But there's more money there.
The need is there.
Okay.
I won't say money. The need is there.
Okay.
He does, of course, other things as well. So.
Okay.
And we collaborate.
Why 4? Why can't we train more people? Are you training? Do you have a protege that you are training?
Yes.
Okay.
So currently, Kumasi has sent 1 person to India through the NGO.
Okay.
And we also have somebody who is ready to start training.
Okay.
So very soon we're going to have 6, and then hopefully 8 and 10, and then we go. Then we can clear that backlog of 24,000. Okay.
There are 24,000 people in need
about
of
24,000 people who are blind from corneal diseases
across the country.
Across the country. There was a 2015.
That's those who even know that that's what they need.
Exactly.
What about those who are unsure?
Who don't even know? Yes. So the backlog is huge. So there's a lot of work, and we need a hand.
Okay.
Luckily, we have the training set up all ready to go. Ghana College has given the go-ahead for us to train.
Okay.
And it's in collaboration with external partners. So we're going to get really good quality surgeons coming on board.
Okay.
The nurses are also trained, because you can get, we need specialist nurses as well. So an eye nurse who has also specialized in cornea. So we have 1 now, and we are also trying to get more.
Okay.
And that will help us. Apart from that, even the primary care system that we have, when you have an eye problem, where to go.
Yeah.
Not to a wrong place where they'll put urine in your eye, or they'll put...
To wash it.
Yes. But to go to a correct place where they'll start the right things.
Yeah.
Not give you the wrong medication again that will worsen things. So once all this is followed up, primary care and finally to tertiary care, and then we do the transplants.
Wow. That's a lot of good things happening in that space, and hopefully our advocacy will reach the length and breadth of this country, and those who really have the power to pass the legislation for us to really expand the success stories of the cornea transplanting in Ghana. We'll go for our first break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Gladys Fordjuor and Dr. Dziffa on today's edition of The Lowdown. It's really revealing. Are you going to donate your eye or your cornea in the event you pass on? That's a question to think about while we go for our break. We're back after this break. Stay with us.
Everyone needs the perfect snack to munch on during a fun moment.
Wow. Enjoy the tasty McBerry Twist cupcakes, deliciously baked and packaged for a sweet treat.
Premium quality cakes baked with love for all, enriched in butter and milk.
Yummy.
Oh, McBerry Twist cupcakes, simply irresistible. Try one today.
This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back from the break. This is still the Lowdown on Ghanaweb TV. My name is Daniel Oduro. We hope that you are learning great lessons from our series of conversations as far as organ transplantation and organ donation is concerned. In Ghana, there is no comprehensive legislation surrounding organ donation and organ harvesting. We are told by those who know about it that they don't want people to exploit others for their organs. So the question is, how do we ensure that we pass the laws that would afford or offer people who are in need the chance to have a transplant without necessarily having the issue of exploitation, financially or otherwise, as far as organ transplant is concerned? Today, we are focusing on cornea transplant in Ghana. This year alone, we've had 18 transplants as far as cornea is concerned in Ghana. I'm sure, and Kolebu alone, I'm sure you don't know about it, but after this interview you will know more about it. But are you going to donate your cornea? Are you going to donate any part of your body in the event that you've passed on? That's where the next conversation would be as far as legislation is concerned. But Dr. Dziffa, let me come back to you. You deal with children. Then there are children who have cornea issues.
Yeah.
How do they get it? How do they get a scarring? Do they inherit it? Is it from birth? How does it happen?
So a few children may inherit it, so they may be
So
born,
this is hereditary?
Yeah, a few children may have it from birth. So maybe they may be born with a corneal opacity. Maybe as their eye was forming, it didn't form properly in the womb, and then they are born with it. And then they can get infections when they are young as well. And then when the infection is not properly treated, Dr. Fordjuor just talked about using urine for treatment. Some people use herbs, all kinds of things, unimaginable things, and then it results in a cornea scar. So that scar makes the cornea opaque. So you will find children who were born with it, children who have had infection, and children who have had trauma. So they are playing with their siblings. There's a broomstick injury, a blunt injury to the eye, an open injury to the eye. Then when it heals by scarring. Then they will need cornea transplants. Like she said earlier on, so there are lots of backlog. There are lots of people who need cornea transplants. So those people are aware of cornea transplants, but they know that the cornea is not available. And that is why the legislation is key. Because when the legislation comes into force, we have enough cornea available, and training becomes even much easier. Because if you have people who are willing to do it, and there's no cornea to work with. So imagine we get, like, we've done 18 cornea in the country, in Kolebu this year. Obviously, it's boss who's going to do those cornea because they are precious cornea, right? Yes. So it's important that we have the legislation in place, we have the tissue available. And you ask yourself, where did the US get it from? It was people who donated.
Right.
The people who donated, and then we are getting it over here. Nepal, India, how do they get it? They all get it because other people donate. You can't grow the cornea, you can't buy the cornea, it must be donated. So we have to make a conscious effort to push this legislation so that we can create a lot of awareness about it, so that when you are going, you live forever when you leave your cornea behind. Because even though you are gone, your cornea lives on. If that person also donates, imagine you'll be there for many centuries, isn't it?
Yes, a piece of you will be there.
A piece of you will be there for many centuries. So it's important that this is done, and done quickly. Right. So that we can reduce the amount of blindness from cornea. 11% of the people who were blind, 11.1%, was just due to cornea, and it can be sorted out. So there's no reason why they should be begging by the sides of the road when there's solution to the problem. There are certain eye problems that you cannot get a solution to.
Right.
You are blind and that is the end of it. But this one, there's a solution to it.
Okay.
So it's wrong for us not to pursue that solution.
What are the bottlenecks? I can understand the kidney one because it's live and because you can live on one, people can exploit others and say, I'll give you X amount, and so you donate one of your kidneys. But for the cornea, even if we don't have a comprehensive, why can't we have a law, a working law or legislation for cornea? Because the person is dead and gone. So what are the challenges, that you are hearing of that is stopping the legislation from being passed?
I think the first one, like boss said, there are 4 of them now. So initially we didn't even have the cornea surgeons around.
Okay, so
if they were even around, there were so many other issues to deal with.
Okay.
That cornea transplants, it was easier for you to just travel out of the country and then get it done. But now that we have a lot of hands on board, so the first one may be the manpower for it. But because you spoke about exploitation.
Yeah.
Organ and tissue donation is very, very tricky. Okay. Because at the same time, you don't want people to exploit. So the legislation must be in place. So it is key. Before we move forward, it's important that we understand that you cannot go and catch someone and bring the person for us to harvest the person's cornea.
Yeah.
You have to have consent. The person must be dead. Otherwise, you have people selling people just to harvest their organs. So that legislation must be there so that if someone falls foul of the law, that person will be dealt with. So that these things, we can have the clear way to now donate the organs and then go ahead and then do the transplant. So the first one, I would say expertise, and then the second one, I think, is legislation. Because once legislation is there, then all these issues are sorted out. And remember, you don't buy the cornea, so it's not about being able to afford it.
Yeah.
Because someone willingly gave it out. So it is just processing the processing fee. So now if we are getting the cornea from the US, you talked about the distance. It cannot come on a ship. It must come by flight.
Yeah.
And it has to come by a cold chain. And the longer the cornea stays, the lower the viability.
Okay.
So if you donate it here and you can transplant it here today, it's better than something that has been donated over there a week ago. Then you have to transport it here. You need FDA approval. You need to pay for courier charges. So those are the processing fees that the patients pay. But if we are doing it here and people are donating willingly, then the processing fee doesn't become that much.
Right.
It is something that will be affordable for everybody.
Yeah.
So that we are not needlessly blind from cornea diseases.
Assuming that the legislation is passed, you need a bank. Do we have the capacity to say thousands of people are donating? Where are we going to store it? How long can it be stored for?
So there will be, it's all part of the legislation being passed, right?
Okay.
It's all part of the framework, because then we have to have a cornea bank, and then we have to train people on how to store the cornea, even people to harvest the cornea.
Yeah.
So in certain parts of the world, people are just trained to do it. It doesn't have to be like a medical doctor.
Oh, really?
Yes. So once we put the legislation into place, all these things, all this framework has been thought through, and then the bank will now store the cornea, and then we'll be able to get the cornea from there.
When we say a bank, how does it look like? I'm sure you have other organ banks. When we say a bank, whether in Ghana or outside, is it like a fridge? Is it like a cold store? What's it?
So a bank will come with, first of all, you need to make sure that you are not carrying any disease to another person. That's the first one.
Okay.
So the bank is responsible for making sure that the cornea they have taken is free of disease. So that's the first one.
Disease like what?
Like you can carry HIV, you can carry
The
herpes.
eye?
It's part of the body.
Okay.
Organisms will go into the eye.
Okay.
And once you give it to somebody else, you've given the person an infection. So that's the first thing. So that's one of the responsibilities, to make sure that the tissues we have taken is free of infection. And then you also have to examine the tissue, the cornea, to make sure that it is good enough to give it to somebody else.
Okay.
With aging, the eye changes.
Yeah.
There are some cells that, let's say you need 100 of. With aging, it drops. Okay? With injury, infection, it drops. So you need to look at the cornea carefully examine and see whether those cells that you really need, are they, good enough?
Okay.
And then they are stored in special solutions.
Okay.
And in the fridge.
Okay.
And then when it's needed, it's given out. So the bank is not just, taking the cornea and putting them in the freezer,
okay,
but processing it, making sure that it's free of infection. It is good enough.
Okay.
All layers of the cornea is good enough. And then when it's more advanced, then sometimes we transplant not just the full tissue, but we can take parts of the cornea. So only the back. For people who have problems only at the back of the cornea, they transplant only at the back of the cornea. For people who have, the front part, they just transplant only the front parts of the cornea.
Wow.
And that reduces the rejection rate. But when we talk about rejection rate, cornea is one of the best tissues to transplant because rejection rate is very low. Okay. So we have huge successes. So if you get a patient, you are not going to test the patient's blood and see whether it matches.
Yes, because I was coming to that. No compatibility test or anything.
No, because cornea is one of the tissues that is, we call it, it doesn't have, things that will react.
So can you give a child's cornea to an adult?
Not a baby's cornea, but yes, a younger person's. It's been better than an older cornea.
Okay.
So yes, you can.
And the vice versa is also true. You can give an older person's cornea to a younger person.
You
not
can.
Not a child, but a younger person.
If you don't have an option, yes.
Okay.
But what it means is that because of aging, the aging process I told you about, is not going to be, his age.
Right.
But there's a count. It all comes with the banking. You need to do the cell count.
Okay.
And so the cell count will tell you whether the tissue is good enough for the patient.
Wow. Wow. How long does it take to do a cornea transplant? How many hours does it take to do it?
Maybe minutes.
Minutes.
Depending.
Do you prep the patients? Do they have to come in a day before? What does it? Or they can come in, they wake up, finish it, and just go home.
Yes.
They don't have to heal. They don't have bed rest and everything.
You can. So what happens when they come in the morning?
Okay.
They are checked for. Make sure. Of course, you need to make sure BP is okay, sugar is okay, everything is okay, because you want optimal conditions before you take them in. Surgery may last maybe 45 minutes. If it's complex, 1 hour, but not 2 hours. In centers where it's done, maybe within 30 minutes it's done.
So as we grow and as we improve, it could be shorter.
It could be shorter.
Okay.
It could be shorter. And then of course when they finish, then they have to stay in the recovery ward.
Okay.
You make sure they are okay before they go home.
Okay.
There are certain, there's a type of surgery that you need to position the patient because you put air into the eye as well to help, attach the tissue that you have put in. So those ones, you monitor them, over a few hours before you allow them go home.
Okay.
And then talk about the post-op care and all that.
This is a bit funny, but have you had cases where people are averse to having a transplant because of spiritual, cultural, if you like, things in their head, like why am I going to get Obroni eyes and all of that? Do you have that pushback?
Yeah, so one of the bottlenecks you talked about would be cultural or traditional beliefs, and it's there. And that is why we need advocacy.
Okay.
Because one of the things is that people believe that if I'm dying, I have to go with every part of my body. Otherwise, if you take out my eye, how do I see? So
how do I see there's an afterlife?
Yes. So all these are there. Okay. And for people to think that, of course, patients also have that, but we've seen that patients are desperate. They want to see.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't usually get that. Maybe for the first few minutes they think about it, and then once they understand that it's going to help their vision, they take it. And those people are the best motivators that you can even get, because they keep telling others how good.
Yeah.
They couldn't see before, now they can see.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of. I've learned a lot of things the last couple of weeks about organ transplant, and indeed the general health care system in Ghana. So this is a conversation that we need to have, we need to keep going. My producer says that at Ghanaweb we are going to send a petition to Parliament to, if you like, make this one of the key consideration before the 8th Parliament terminates in a year and a half. Hopefully that's able to be done. A couple of days ago we met the presidential advisor on health, Dr. Nsiansari, who said he's hoping that President Nana Akufo-Addo will be able to, if you like, make the legislation on organ donation a feasibility or a possibility before his tenure as president. Finally, Dr. Dziffa Bella, your final words about the cultural limitations, about the importance of cornea transplantation in Ghana.
So we recognize that cultural beliefs is going to be one of the bottlenecks that we're going to face as surgeons.
Yeah.
You know that even when the legislation is put into place, one of the difficult things that we have to do is to be able to convince the average Joe that it is okay to donate your eye when you die. And this is why Ambassador for Cornea Blindness is Ehunabobrim, Nana Pra the Sith.
Hey. That's a big title. Okay.
So he's the chief of the Asin Kushia area, and we have already met with him and met with the Central Regional House of Chiefs, and we've started the advocacy from there. Okay. Because once they understand and they buy into it, then they'll be able to educate the public for us. But if you look at Nana Prajensen, he's won the cleanest city in the country for many years. He's been winning that for many years, and it's one of the reasons why we have him as our ambassador. And we are grateful to him so far for how much he's been able to push, even in terms of the legislature, giving us audience to the Nananum of the Central House of Chiefs, and we are hoping that he's going to use his good office to push us to the other regions so that we can educate the public about corneal blindness and the fact that it is okay when you are not using the eye, when you are dead and gone and you're not going to use your eye, it is okay to leave it behind. It's okay to will it to someone else, and then to create awareness to all of us as well. Yeah. Okay, it's important. You asked about whether a child's cornea can be given to an adult. You see, so even the shape of the child's eye is a little different from the adult's eye. So the children, we even need the cornea cry. So we are holding on to it. We are not giving it to adults because. And another thing is, you don't see that lots of children don't die. Of course. So you're not likely to get cornea from a child. So when we get from a child, definitely we're going to put it in another child. But we have a lot of adults, and when we pass away, when we have lived our lives here and we have passed away, we can will our eyesight, our cornea to the next generation. So we want to encourage everyone. Think about it, like you said, not just the eye, other parts of your body, but most importantly the eye. Think about it, and then will your eye.
There are people who say they don't have any properties, any physical properties or any material properties, but maybe the cornea could be something you leave behind as a will. Finally, let me come to Dr. Fordjuor. Dr. Fordjuor, are you encouraging more people like Dr. Dziffa to come into the field of cornea, if you like, to specialize in cornea transplant or the whole science around cornea on the eye?
Most definitely. So as I teach medical students, as I teach the residents, as I teach, all the students that come here, you want to expose them to all these things. And that is where we are getting the interest from. Okay. So yes, definitely.
Did you get your training in Ghana, or you went outside to specialize in cornea?
Went outside to specialize.
Okay.
And then part of it is specialists coming in and then doing more with you.
Okay. So you learn on the job and all of that. Okay. What's your aim that in the next year or two, how many cornea surgeons we are going to have in Ghana?
In 2 years, two more.
Two more.
At least in Kolebu.
In Kolebu.
And then maybe 2 more in Konfanochi.
Yeah.
So
maybe we should encourage Ghanaians who have studied abroad to come back home. Unfortunately, these days there's a lot of exodus in the medical field.
Unfortunately.
Is it also affecting the eye center of Kolebu?
It is, with other cadres.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's nothing. It's not far away.
They are making good money outside. Maybe that's the reason.
Exactly.
I hope they pay you well. One of 4 doctors in Ghana who deals with the eye. I hope they pay you well. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your service to this country, Dr. Fordjuor and Dr. Dziffa. I'm grateful for your time, and we learn every day. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you learn something from it. My name is Daniel Oduro. We continue our advocacy on organ donation on Ghanaweb TV. We'll be back another time with another edition. Until then, it's bye for now.